Good morning, Year 10. I hope you've had a lovely week. Welcome to your solutions video. So please make sure you mark your questions as you go along correct any that you didn't quite get correct. Okay, so we're going to start with number 1, which is nice and simple. So we've got subtracting fractions. So as we know, when we're adding or subtracting fractions, we need to make sure the denominator is the same. So we're going to times these two together. That's a good start. Okay, so we're going to do 6 times 7, which would equal 42, and we're going to have that as our denominator. Okay, so to get from 42, so basically just times this side by the opposite denominator, okay? So I did 7 times 6 to get 42, so I'm going to have to do 7 times 5 as well. So 7 times 5 is 35. Now, to get to 42 on this side, I did 6 times 7, so I'm going to have to do 6 times 1 as well, which would equal 6. So then I've just got to take away the numerators. So 35 minus 6 equals 29 over 42. Okay, so that would be our final answer there. And that is it in its most simplified form as well. Okay, so same for this one. So we're going to get the same denominator. So 3 times 2 is 6. So we'll have 6 as our denominator. Now to get to 6, so again I times by the opposite denominator, okay, so I did 2 times 3, so I'm going to do the same to the top of this one, so 2 times 1 is 2. Now this side, to get to 6, I times by 3, I did 3 times 2 to get to 6, so I'm going to have to do 3 times 1, so that would be 3, and they're in addition this time, so therefore my answer would be 5 over 6 for that one, okay? So on to the next one, it says round 4,770 to one significant figure. So I'm going to look at the first number that I've got, which is a 4, because that's my first significant figure. Then I've got to look at the number next to it. Okay, now if the number next to it is a 5 or above, then I'm going to have to change my first number up 1. But if it was 4 or below, then I could leave it the same. But this time it's above 5, so I'm going to change my 4 to a 5. And therefore it becomes 5,000 to one significant figure. Okay, now the next one is a decimal, but it's the same principle. So we've got round 0.26683 to one significant figure. So I can look at my first significant figure, which is 0.2. Now again, I look at the number next to it, which is a 6. So this time it's above 5 again. So therefore I've got to put my previous number up 1. So it becomes 0.3 to one significant figure. Okay, so on to multiplying fractions. So as I always say, these are the easiest ones, okay? Because when we're multiplying fractions, we just times the numerator and we times the denominator. So 4 times 1 is 4, and then 9 times 2 is 18. Okay, so 4 over 18 is the answer, but it wouldn't get you all the marks because you need to make sure you simplify it. When we simplify fractions, we've just got to do the same to the top as the bottom, okay? So in this case, we can divide both by 2, okay? So if I divide 4 by 2, I get 2, and if I divide 18 by 2, I get 9. So the actual answer, fully simplified, is 2 over 9. Okay, on to the next one then. So for this, we always use keep, flip, change, okay? So K, F, C. Okay, so we keep the first fraction the same, so 4 over 5. Then we flip the second fraction, so it would now become 2 over 1. And we change the sign in the middle to a times. And then I can just do what I did previously. So 4 times 2 is 8, 5 times 1 is 5. Now that is a top-heavy fraction, and I'm not overly keen on those, so if I wanted to make it into a mixed number, I would ask myself how many of the bottom number went into the top number. Well, there's 1 5 fits into 8, with 3 left over. So my actual answer would be 1, and then 3 over 5. On to some factorising then. So if you remember, factorising just means putting the brackets in, okay? So we've got to find the highest number that fits into both of these, okay? The highest number that fits into 56 and 35. Now in this case, that is the number 7. So I can pop my 7, my highest common factor, outside the bracket. So I've done that. Now I can draw in my brackets, and I've just got to make the rest of it work, okay? So what do I have to times 7 by to get 56? Okay, so I'm going to have to times 7 by 8 to get 56, so I can write my 8 in there. But I've also got an x, so I'm going to have to pop that in too. Okay, so now I know that 7 times 8x equals 56x. But then I've got to figure out, how do I get from 7 to 35? What am I going to times that by? So I'm going to times that by 5. So now I can test it. So 7 times 8x equals 56x, and 7 times 5 equals 35. So I know that that's the correct answer. Now the next one's a little bit more tricky, and because it's got an x squared there, okay? But first of all, it's the same principle. I've got to find out what is my highest common factor that goes into both of these numbers, that goes into 14 and 49. Well, in this case, it's again the number 7. So I can pop that on the outside of my bracket, and then I just have to make the rest of it work. So what do I have to times 7 by to get to 14? Well, I have to times it by 2. Now I've got a problem here, because actually the highest common factor between both of these is actually 7x, because there's an x in both of these. So I actually need to put my x on the outside of the brackets too. So I've got 7x on the outside because there's an x in both parts. So now 7x times 2 equals 14x. But I don't want 14x, I want 14x squared. Okay, now when something is squared, it just means that it's times by itself. So to get x squared, I need to times x by itself. So I pop my x in there. So now I know that that bit's correct, because 7x times 2x equals 14x squared. So now I've got to ask myself, how do I get from 7x to 49x? What do I times that by? Well, 7 times 7 is 49, so I pop my 7 in there, and therefore I know it's correct. Again, I can test it, because I can do 7x times 2x equals 14x squared, and I can do 7x times 7 equals my 49x, which is perfect, okay? So, on to the next one. And we are attempting to find the highest common factor, okay, of 16 and 56. So, first of all, I'm going to do my factors of 16. So, I've got 1 and 16. I've got 2 and 8, and I've got 4. So those are all the numbers that kind of make up 16. Okay, so then I'm going to move on to 56. So I've got 1 and 56. It's an even number, so I can do 2. So I can do 2 and 28. And then I can move on and do... Well, I can't do 3, so I'm going to have to skip that one, but I can do 4, because 4 times 14 is 56. I can't do 5, can't do 6, but I can do 7 times 8. Okay, so now I need to find the highest number that appears in both of those, okay, and in this case, it is 8. So the highest common factor for those two numbers is the number 8, okay? Now the next one, as we know, is a bit of a long-winded one to try and fit on this sheet, but it says express 2,160 as a product of its prime factors, okay? So just like before, I would take my 2,160. It's an even number, so I'm going to split it into 2 and 1,080. Yeah, hold on. And then obviously I've got my prime number there, so then I can do it again. So I've got 2, and then I've got 540 this time, so I've got that 2 again. And then I can split that into 2 again because it's an even number. So I would have 250, 270. And I can split that into 2 again. So I'd have 2 and 135. Then I could split it in 2, 3, so I would have 3 times 45. Then I could split that into 5 times 9, which would then be 3 and 3. Okay, so that's what your factor tree should look like. I will delete that in a second, but I'll just write it as it should be, so you can see it as well. Okay, but you just do 2 to the power of however many you've got, so 2 to the power of 4, 3 to the power of 3, and then 5. So that's what it should look like, okay? You just figure out how many you've got and then put them as indices. So if I've got 4 2's, I would do 2 to the power of 4 times 3 to the power of 3 times 5. On to video 2 for the last 10 questions.